All right, here we are. Another variable naming pass, this time at file handling and path names and file names and such. Okay, so here's a little code snippet. And we have a file called weatherdata 2023 oregon.json. Opening it, and we're setting it to this variable. And I'm calling it weather JSON file. And then I load the JSON object, and then I close the file. So it's very typical that when you're dealing with a file like this, you open it, load something, and close it right away. Unless you're generating a file. It might take longer. But in cases like this, 3 lines of code, it's okay to make things smaller. And so down here, I went down to file, but, file equals that, load the file and file close. But very often, I just almost always see F equals open, and we just deal with F, and it just makes things cleaner. So I think that's the way to go for getting files open. Trickier and the harder for me to be disciplined about. And I think I've seen other people do this as well in their code, dealing with path names versus file names. So here we have a path name being set to a variable, and I call it weather JSON path because I'm preserving the context here. It's a JSON file of weather. I could call it weather data 2023 Oregon path, but that would probably be too long. So, but for purposes of this discussion, the point is I don't just say path equals that, and especially if you're dealing with other paths and so forth. So preserving some context is always better, and I recommend having a suffix, whatever it is, _path. Sometimes people use relative paths in their code, and I've seen them just call it path, and it's caused, I think I remember one in the last months that was maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute debugging thing to try to figure out what was going on with this or something. It can make a difference. And so if you have a relative path, capture that explicitly with a suffix. Yeah, so this is a file name right here. Now, this is not a file. This is the name of a file. It's unambiguous. When I look at this string, it's not a file. It's the name of the file. So whether JSON F name or whether JSON file name, either one's fine. I think I've gravitated to using F name because it's shorter. But again, always use the context preserving prefix there. And let's see. Yeah. So this is the really confusing thing. So if I say whether JSON file equals something that's a file name, and then I'm seeing this file later, is that the file it was opened? It's just going to be confusing. And so especially more confusing without the context. So I recommend avoiding that. Okay, path. If you just want to use path on its own, the place you want to do that is in a function where it could be any path. It doesn't matter what kind of path it is. There's nothing special about the path to the function. So if this is just some little utility, list the paths endure with length. Sure, you could say path equals os.path.join this thing, print path, and like the path. It's fine. No harm done. It's appropriate to the generic concept of any path. Next, we'll have what I think is the final video on variable naming. And I'm going to show you an example from the wild of where care was not taken. We can check that out.